I want to start with something true. Choosing your peace might mean losing them. Not might in the vague, theoretical way that every piece of advice about self-respect gestures towards, but actually, concretely, specifically might mean losing the person you love. The one whose name still appears in your head at unexpected moments. The one whose return you have been quietly hoping for, even while telling yourself you have moved on. The one who represents, in some way you have not fully been able to articulate, something that felt rare and real and not easily replaceable. I am not going to pretend otherwise. Because I think one of the most dishonest things that gets said in this space is that choosing yourself always brings the right person running. That self-respect is ultimately a strategy that produces the love you wanted all along. That the boundary you set and hold will be the thing that finally makes the avoidant see your value and choose to change. Sometimes that happens. I have seen it. I have talked about it on this channel because it is real. But sometimes choosing your peace simply costs you the relationship. And I think you deserve to hear that clearly before I say anything else. Because the choice I am asking you to consider is a real one, with real stakes. And it deserves to be made with open eyes. So why choose it anyway? Let me tell you what peace actually is. Not the word, the experience. Peace is not the absence of feeling. It is not numbness or detachment or the careful management of emotion that you have probably already spent too much time practicing inside this dynamic. Peace is the experience of your interior life belonging to you, of waking up in the morning and having your first thoughts be about your own day rather than about where they are in their cycle, of spending an evening without the background hum of monitoring, of making a decision, any decision, without first calculating how it will land with them, or what it will mean for the dynamic, or whether it will create distance or invite closeness. Peace is the experience of being the main character of your own life. And I want to ask you something honest. When did you last have that? Not before this relationship necessarily. Maybe you have not had it in any relationship. Maybe the pattern of organizing your interior world around another person's availability started long before this particular avoidant arrived. Maybe this dynamic is familiar in a way that goes deeper than this one person. But right now, inside this relationship, inside this dynamic, when did you last feel like the primary occupant of your own mind? Because here is what the avoidant dynamic does over time, and I am not saying this as an accusation of the avoidant, it is simply the structural consequence of the pattern. It colonizes your interior life. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the hypervigilance required to navigate the inconsistency, the constant reading of signals and adjusting of behavior and managing of expectations, the hope and the disappointment cycling through on their own schedule, the waiting that becomes such a constant presence you stop noticing it is happening. All of that takes up space, real space, space that belongs to your thoughts, your creativity, your sense of self, your relationship with your own desires and your own becoming. And the longer the dynamic continues, the more of that space gets quietly occupied, until one day you realize that a significant portion of your interior life is being run by someone who is not consistently present in your actual life. That is not love, that is haunting, and you are allowed to want your house back. Now let me say something about the cost, about what choosing peace actually requires you to give up, because I think it is more specific than just the relationship. It requires giving up the version of the future you built around them. Not just the relationship as it was, but the relationship as it could have been, the potential you saw and held on to, the version of them that appeared in the good moments and that you believed, with real evidence, was the truest version. The life you imagined in the particular shape that included them in it. That potential is not a fantasy. It was real potential. You were not wrong to see it. But potential that has not become reality after this much time, after this many cycles, after this much evidence of what the pattern does, is not a promise. It is a possibility. And a possibility is not something you can build a life around. It also requires giving up the identity of being the person who loved them well enough to reach what no one else could reach. I know that identity is real for some people in this dynamic. The sense that you see something in this person that others have missed. That your particular love, your particular patience and understanding and depth of feeling is the thing that might finally be enough. That is not delusion. That seeing is often accurate. But the desire to be the one who finally reached them can keep you in something long past the point where staying is good for you. Because leaving starts to feel like giving up on them, like confirming that the love was not enough after all. Your leaving is not a verdict on the love. It is a decision about your life, and those are not the same thing. When you choose peace, something begins. Not immediately, not cleanly. The grief that follows real endings is real, and it does not follow a schedule, and it cannot be reasoned away. But underneath the grief, something starts to return. The sound of your own thinking, uninterrupted by the constant background process of managing the dynamic. The texture of your own desires, which had been quietly subordinated to the question of what the relationship needed. The specific quality of a morning where the first thought is yours and not about them. And eventually, slowly, the experience of your life as something you are actually living, rather than something you are enduring in the spaces between their availability. That return is not nothing. It is everything. Because here's the truth that I come back to at the end of all of it. You cannot pour from a vessel that has been slowly emptied by years of loving someone who could not fully receive it. You cannot be present for your own life while a significant portion of your interior resources are permanently allocated to someone who is only intermittently present in yours. You cannot become who you are meant to become while the avoidant dynamic is running in the background, shaping your choices and your self-perception and your understanding of what love is supposed to feel like. Choosing your peace is not giving up on love. It is creating the conditions in which real love, the kind that does not require you to be smaller or more patient or more understanding than any human being should have to be, becomes possible. And the avoidant, the specific person you are losing when you make this choice, I want to say something about them too. Your leaving, if you leave with honesty and without cruelty, is not the worst thing that can happen to them. It might be the most clarifying. Because the avoidant who has spent years in a dynamic where their pattern has been absorbed without consequence has not been given the opportunity to see what the pattern actually costs. Your peace, chosen finally and genuinely, is the mirror that shows them. Not as punishment, as truth. And truth, for an avoidant who has been living inside a carefully constructed distance from it, is the beginning of everything that actually matters. Whether they act on it with you or with someone else, or simply alone in the long, honest reckoning that follows a real loss, the truth you leave behind when you choose yourself is the most loving thing you ever gave them. Choose your peace. Not because it will fix them, not because it will bring them back, not because it is the strategy that finally produces the outcome you wanted, but because your life, your one specific, unrepeatable life, is not a waiting room, and you were never meant to spend it hoping someone would choose you, while quietly forgetting to choose yourself.